process. Worry about yourself, like I'm saying, man. It's bigger than me, bigger than you. You know what I mean? If you know what you gotta do, then do it. You always making excuses, we ain't got time for no excuses. You gotta get it, man. You know what I'm saying? Don't let nobody hold you back. Don't about that negativity, suggestions. Fuck all that shit, my nigga. Yeah.
No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous. And you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous. And you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. Yeah. Still watching for clones, but they all over the globe. Probably why I say whoa. Young nigga never made money from stoves, but went hard with the zones. Me and Henny broke it down way before. Now we killing shows, just act like you know. Whoa. Got a new bitch from the bottom. Still never changed out my niggas from potters. Honest, I've been feeling golly. You get in my way, then you leave me no ops. Niggas thinking this a race, till we put them in their place. Leave their family with a ghost, then we pull off in a race. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you.
It's no competition. You niggas be lying about how you be feeling, saying you Jordan, you not even Pippin. Or Rodman when he was with Pistons. You blondie, you lying about all of your visions. Your paper be short like some midgets. I used to step out and just worry about digits, and now I just focus my visions. I had to distance myself from some people cause they just be holding you back. I wasted some time, I never get back. Like why I do that? You niggas be bitching, it's just to be seen and put on the map. I only know some niggas who know how to spin up a check and get it right back.
No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell the homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous, and you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell the homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition.
Gamer boy, gamer boy, gamer boy, gamer boy.
Zach. Whoa. Just gotta focus on yourself out here, y'all. Don't pay too much to the competition. Don't worry about what other people doing. Gotta trust your process. Worry about yourself, like I'm saying, man. It's bigger than me, bigger than you. You know what I mean? If you know what you gotta do, then do it. You always making excuses, we ain't got time for no excuses.
I think I'm cute, I know I'm sexy, I've got the look that drives the girls wild. I got the moves that really move them. I send chills up and down their spines. I'm just a sexy boy. Are y'all ready to go? Are you ready for another episode of The Blackout? Because it's going down right now. Woo! I make them hot. I make them shiver. Things get weak whenever I'm around. They see me walk, they hear me talk. I make them feel like their God ain't real. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. That might flip though. Hands off the merchandise. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. Welcome everybody to another edition of The Blackout. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, folks, I am in airplane mode, and I did not know who to get to join me on this. I had a very specific list of demands. I needed the biggest, the baddest, the blackest, the angriest, the most dangerous man who is 100% committed to the death of Christian apologetics and all manner of right-wing nonsense. I am talking about the dastardly destructor of dickhead doofaces, Uncle Bobby.
Man, while you were sitting there doing your intro this morning, I watched a documentary on China, as in WWF China, and they showed the old DX days, Shawn Michaels and all that, and I forgot. Holy shit, those were the fucking days.
How
and
much
Shawn
fun
Michaels
that was.
Character was phenomenal. I still remember. I watched the match where Ric Flair finally stepped down, and his last match was against Shawn Michaels.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I
still remember how they both cried.
Yes.
And before he gave him that side kick to the face, Rick was like, I'm ready. And Shawn cried. And you see him mouth the words, I love you.
Yes, he did. And then he kicked him in the face.
In the fucking face.
I was crying.
I remember. We all were.
Yeah.
Those were the days. Those were the days.
That was emotional. All right, gang. We need some alcohol. This is gonna be.
Goddamn right. Goddamn right.
All right, folks. We got a good one lined up for you today. And I don't even know how I feel about it, but it's quite a lot of footage. So we're going to jump ahead and get into it. But basically, we have a pastor who is exposing the threat of Trump and Christian nationalism. Now, y'all know the subject of Trumpism and Christian nationalism is not something we're new to. But there's this bittersweet feeling of, yes, I want to hear a Christian pastor finally speak to the hypocrisy. But it also speaks to the frustration of the moment, because it feels like there's no amount that Christian nationalism can run amok that Christians will start to question Christianity. You know, it's somehow, I'm afraid that it's going to be the solution to our problem with Christian nationalism is somehow the right Christianity, right? It's more Christianity. We need more Christianity to get rid of these damn
Christians. It's like the gun problem, right? The only way to solve the gun problem is to add more guns to the situation. Yeah, the only way to solve the Christianity problem is just to up the volume on more Christianity.
100%. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, and we'll see where we're at. For those of you that are not subscribed, this is a Midas Touch interview, and I haven't seen it, but I like their network because they bring to bear a lot of great legal analysis. Like they get into, if there's an indictment, they're going to read the indictment and jump into the details. And there's court cases, they're following the procedures in the transcript. So I love their analysis. This one feels a little dangerous. Let's see what happens. All right. Kick us off, Uncle Bobby.
Gang, let's jump into this shit.
Jump into it.
What Trump did is he kind of merged these two groups together. So you've got like the Paula Whites, the more global Pentecostal religion. And that's where we get this bringing in, especially of the end times, and this sense we've got to defend ourselves for these coming end times. Certainly a weapon that has been used for a long time to justify a lot of corrupt religious leadership.
I'm Ken Harbaugh.
What could possibly
Appreciate you, Carrie Ann.
This is Burn the Boats, a show about making tough calls in tough times. America today faces a critical test. Our democracy is under threat. But good people are rising to the challenge. Now is the time to go all in. Now we burn the boats.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay.
My guest today is Angela Danker, a Lutheran pastor and journalist. Her book, Red State Christians, takes a hard look at white Christian nationalism and the evangelicals who voted for Trump. Angela, welcome to Burn the Boats.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You published an updated version of Red State Christians after the events of January 6th, but it was way back in 2019, which seems like a lifetime ago, that you were one of the first to dive deep into Christian nationalism. Can you give us an idea of what that term means? And if you could do it by sharing the story which opens your book of what 4th of July celebrations look like at the mega churches you visited, because I think that imagery, the flag and the cross side by side,
yes,
that captures Christian nationalism better than just about any statistics we might be able to come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. The beginning story of Red State Christians started out what feels for me now like a very naive place for me, and even for my publisher. They came to me with this idea, and hindsight's 2020 when you look at all this, but their initial idea was they had seen the success of hillbilly elegy, and they're like, we want to do the Christian hillbilly elegy, which was we've seen a lot of changes since then with what's happened with J.D. Vance. So I, set out on this journey to really, my impetus, my goal was to tell stories and to talk to the people who weren't getting a chance to share their stories in the national media, particularly just everyday Christians, rural Christians, as well as some prominent leaders. But I began my journey at the March for Life. And at the March for Life, spoke with a pastor from Florida who was then a member of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. He's the one who pushed me on Christian nationalism. And I really have to credit him with, kind of busting my naivety and saying, this is a gospel distortion in the church right now. And so he was the one who said, if you
go for it.
So again, there's my initial problem. Again, none of us have ever talked to the Christian who got it wrong. Every Christian you talk to is the one that absolutely, positively, 100% nailed the proper meaning, proper interpretation, full context of the red letters. And so again, she's talking about those other Christians in the other.
Right.
But they all believe in fucking magic. They all believe in sin and talking snakes. So, I'm sure I'm getting ready to agree with just about everything she's getting ready to say. but I think we've covered this before. She's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you are still promoting the bullshit that you're fighting against.
Absolutely.
Yeah, throwing one glass of water on the fire just to throw a match on top of that.
Exactly. And it reminds me just of exactly the same talk we could have about the LGBTQ issues, where I don't even have to reach for the Bible to think of the scriptures that the other Christians who are quote unquote distorting the gospel are going to pull right from and say, this is what the Bible tells us to do. In the case of the LGBTQ community, it's for man to lie with man is an abomination, and surely they shall both be put to death. Again, I don't even need to reach for the Bible. And with this one of them is going to be go forward and make disciples of nations. I disagree, but I already know that's where a Christian nationalist is going to go, and I have nothing to say other than I agree that the book says that, and it's a stupid ass book.
Exactly.
You really want to understand this, you got to go to Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas, on 4th of July weekend. And so that's what I did, and that's ended up being how the book began and shaped so much, like you say, of what you see in the rest of the book is so much of it ties back to Christian nationalism. And we've seen that in the years to come as well.
It's the elevation of the state to, well, it's like physically placed on the altar. You have the cross side by side with the flag. You have the Pledge of Allegiance recited in church. And an interesting footnote there, the under God part. And, I grew up in an evangelical tradition, and I've been to events where people literally yell the under God part of the Pledge of Allegiance as kind of an FU to everyone else.
See,
and
but
that
pause
wasn't
the
even
tape,
part of the
pause
original.
tape. So here's the thing. Again, of course, we're going to agree with what she says, but I can't remember what the pastor's name is. Does she have any idea how many Christians think that she's not legit? Do you know how many Christians can sit there and with biblical backing say, no woman, I think it's 2 Timothy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. No authority over man. I sat there and watched on my timeline just this week a discussion, a thread where 100% women can't be pastors. So it's like, again, if there was a club and one of their rules is you and me, Bundy, as black dudes, we can't do this show. But why not? Well, everyone knows black dudes aren't intelligent enough to run it. I'm not a part of that club.
Right.
I'm not going to defend that club.
Right.
I'm not going to, well, you took that line out of context. Like, no, it clearly says black guys are not intelligent enough to have this kind of conversation. So I'm like, fuck your club.
Right.
And so, again, we are going to agree with what she says.
Right.
But her position in the eyes of a lot of Christians, it's an abomination.
Right.
She's a joke.
Right.
Right. So again, she's throwing punches for a system that hates her.
Yes.
But these two are going to sit here and break down how those are the wrong Christians. And the fucked up thing is, you and I are going to agree with what they say.
Right.
This is the fucked up part.
Yeah, and it's like, this is one, I think of it as this is our help, and then also the people we're trying to help. So when we try to get, the real meaningful work done on social issues or whatever the issue of the day might be, we're constantly told, oh, these are the people you need to go talk to. These are the quote unquote progressive Christians that are on your side. And we're going, oh, help me. Right. And then at the same time, we're trying to say, hey, y'all want to come jump on board with this anti-racism, this radical feminism and all of this. And they're kind of like, nah, I'm not really sure. Yeah. Right. So the problem I have with this is I say the same thing in my mother. The same thing I see in my grandmother, a woman who aspires to and is happy to be celebrated in the church that makes it clear that women aren't equal. And so it always bothers me to hear a marginalized person defend, the hierarchy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I also think this is interesting because something I just noticed is that they're talking about pastor finally with the threat of Trump and Christian nationalist agenda. they probably are not going to jump into the patriarchy and misogyny of it all. And I also noticed that they're not talking about white Christian nationalism because they probably don't want to dovetail into Christianity and white supremacy. And this is some of the problems when we can't get truly progressive voices from within the faith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pledge. I mean, something has changed. This is not the emergence of an undercurrent that's always been there. It's something new, and I would argue, as you do, sinister, and it's a perversion of the gospel.
Yeah, and one thing I thought maybe we can talk about today too. I know your record of military service, and thank you for your military service. I come from a family of military veterans as well, and I would say the thing that really struck me the most when I was attending that service is the way that they used the military to justify sort of this Christian nationalist state. And what bothered me, as a person, I also served as a chaplain at the Minneapolis Veterans Hospital, was the way in which it used military members as props. And so they would show these montage scenes of the American military in combination with scenes of Jesus' death on the cross. And for me, it was this direct comparison of saying that military death and sacrifice is analogous to Jesus' sacrifice. And for me, it just so ignores the individual stories of military veterans. It doesn't allow each person who served to have their own unique story. And it really uses the military in a way that I saw, Donald Trump really latch onto that with military symbolism as well. We saw that as he's standing in front of a church after.
I just say quickly because I want to let her go, but this aesthetic thing is a real issue. It is something that a lot of people have noticed, and it's especially become a lot during the Trump era, where you're pairing the flag with the Bible. It's the cross next to the flagpole, and then it's support the troops and the wristbands and the ribbons and it is a whole aesthetic.
Well, the problem that I have with what it is that she just said, same thing. They're fronting. I'm old enough to remember when you would go to a high school football game, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem. You'd be lucky if you got 50% participation. I was in high school for the first Gulf War. Do you know what the majority of Americans said about the troops?
Fuck them troops.
Fuck them troops. Right? You're just killing innocent brown people, all for oil, blah, 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 blah. Then 9/11 happened. And then I saw the switch. And by I mean all of us that are like me, military kids or military them. You saw the switch. And it became a fashion statement. We all became this hyper patriot. Then you start keep going. Now you got Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
Right now it's, we love the troops, motherfucker. No, you don't. You love the idea of loving the troops. Because then you got someone like a Trump who found a way to dodge his draft, status. Fucker stubbed his toe or, had a stomach ache. And again, I have a huge problem with the Christian nationalism walking hand in hand with, all of a sudden loving the military. I'm old enough to remember when this was not the case. I've got people where I work who will sit there, and obviously they are older, love the country, nationalism, the United States military. And there's one lady in particular whose husband cannot stand the people. We won't watch football, blah, 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 blah. And I can't remember because I didn't ask. She volunteered. When it was her husband's turn to get drafted to go to Vietnam, guess who found a fucking excuse? So again, it's real easy when there's no skin in the fucking game. So again, I just wanted to point that out. All this walking hand in hand with the military, the exact same people jerking off the military right now, it's because it's fashionable.
And
so again, I will never let that.
But that's
slide.
a really good point because, I'm a little bit younger, so 9/11, I was in high school. right? So we've been on this tip at least my whole adult life, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I missed the point. It's really good that you pointed out that the people who are doing this this is a change in their lifetime. They were the same people who could not be bothered when they were young adults or whatever. They couldn't be bothered to stand for the fucking anthem. They just did not give a shit. It was not a good enough reason to stop eating nachos, and they really wish you would just get to fucking kickoff, right? But now, you know, they can't even watch the NFL because a quarterback took a knee.
Exactly. They're all fronting. This is all a fucking act, period.
That is a very important history lesson. Thank you, sir.
George Floyd. So that was really troubling for me at that service as well.
So you're describing a symptom, but I've got to ask where that glorification of, and I'll just say it out loud, that glorification of violence, of the righteous warrior imagery, where does that come from? Because it's not in Scripture, at least it's not in the New Testament. How did the evangelical church of today...
Okay, I'm just going to say this quickly because I'm going to forget, because it just touched me. The example of Jesus was about sacrifice, right? Yeah. It was lay down your life. Yeah. That's not what the military is into, right? It's go over there with the AK-47 armed, ready to do some damage.
Slaughter everybody.
I mean, it's the Jesus's message was lay down your life rather than even defend yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The military is usually glorifying the offensive aspects of control and combat and all of this stuff. It's just a weird juxtaposition that doesn't really, that's not what you're really signing up when you go to war.
But that's what I'm saying. They're making shit up. They're making shit up to you know, support their narrative. And you nailed it. You're absolutely right. It's you know, and I remember talking to Dad when the mass shootings really started to kick off, because again, I don't know anything about guns. And Dad told me the weapons that are used in real military combat is for one reason and one reason only. And that is to do as much damage as you can in a little bit of time. You can't really see, at least when my dad fought, you can't really see who is in front of you. So they've got a gun that just does that. We're just mowing down as much shit as we possibly can. It's like chemotherapy. We're nuking everything, and we hope we get all the bad cells while sparing as much of the healthy cells as we can. You would just sit there and pull the trigger and just,
yeah.
And you hope you hit enough of the bad people to make your point.
And they call it pray and spray.
Yeah, and the whole Jesus thing is the exact opposite. Yeah, you fucking nailed it. Right? Wait, it's got, which gun would Jesus pick up? According to Christianity, none of them.
Right.
You would just sit there and let someone whip the shit out. Like, oh, Father, it's really me. Please forgive them. They know not what they do.
Exactly.
You told them to do it according to your perfect plan. Right. Again, it doesn't fit. You're right. The military objective versus the stereotypical Jesus. Those are two totally different books to read, Jack.
Absolutely.
Totally different. Yeah.
So we're agreeing with them on this. That whole package don't work.
I know, that's what's fucked up.
Such a militant attitude towards Christianity.
There's a lot of perceived cultural losing, and it comes from a lot of different places. So I want to, that was one of my goals in the book as well, is like, let's not tell one story for this whole movement and one story for the people within this movement, because there's multiple stories. There's certainly, one of my reasons for updating the book in 2022 was that the role of, I think that in the initial edition, I probably underplayed the role of race and just this sense of racial anger, racial violence, for many white Americans, seeing the country becoming more diverse, seeing the presidency of Barack Obama as a perceived threat. I think that history of racial violence and anger in America certainly becomes a part of this, and becomes a part, in many denominations, such as the Southern Baptist Convention, that were founded in the wake of the loss of the Civil War and the end of slavery. So that's a player. It's not the only player. Even when I went to places like Appalachia, I saw, and I've seen within my own family and my own congregation that I served in rural America and on farms, there is this real story of despair, sort of economic despair that was maybe touched on a bit in Hillbilly Elegy. And I do think that, and for me, as a journalist, it's this sense for people that they don't matter, they don't count, their voices aren't being heard. Some of that's perception, some of it is reality, some of it's a result of economic issues. So I think those things are all a part of it. And as you stated, very little of that has to do with Jesus.
I want your insight on that because you just gave a great journalistic answer, and from like a cultural anthropology perspective, that's super insightful. But you're an expert on scripture, and what is the scriptural basis for this fetishization of the military, for the worship of guns? How do they justify that when they're literally thumping the Bible every Sunday at the altar?
There's a way of reading the Bible that's very popular in Christian nationalism. And, for me as a female pastor, a lot of folks don't think women should be pastors. Will say, that the Bible is necessarily masculine, that God is necessarily masculine. And along with that comes an honoring and a sacralization of violence. So we saw that with the rise of pastors like Mark Driscoll of Mars Hill out in Seattle.
She's right. It's a glorification of violence. Again, Trump did it, Gates. Again, it's easy to sit here and talk about doing dirt. It's one thing to actually do the dirt. Okay, to hurt another human being, it's difficult, even when it's justified. It's not easy. And if you're any kind of human, it hurts. It sucks. It's not something that you enjoy. Right? Again, the glorification of violence. The fucked up thing about this whole show, we're going to agree with everything she has to say, but ... Yeah, I think I heard her talk about the glorification of violence. And it's when you are not the person who just took the soldier's oath, it's real easy to sit there and jerk off all over yourself, talking about sacrifice and guns and blah, 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 blah. The only people who don't glorify violence are the people who actually have to inflict it. They know how much that shit sucks.
Right.
There's nothing pretty about hurting another human being, gang. There's nothing pretty about it. Even when it's 100% necessary. Again, all those fuckers, all the Christians who sit here and jerk off, is because they've never been in the situation where they had to do it.
Wow. Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
So she's nailing it.
That's another aspect of self-defense, is it makes you aware of the reality of physical conflict, right? But something I'm noticing here too is I can't hear it from Christians, because this is God's playbook. You worship the God who was apparently mad at people, murdered everything that lived. The God of authoring genocide and slavery and everything else. And then even though they try to present us with the meek and mild Jesus who never harmed a soul and never did sin, what was God's solution to that? He had to be sacrificed in the most violent, bloody way possible. And again, I need Christians to talk about the end game. Do you believe Jesus was born to a virgin? Cool. Do you believe he died for your sins? Cool. Do you believe he's coming back? That's the part I want to get to. Now, what do you think's going to happen to the rest of us when he does? So it's just real hard for me to sit here and listen to them, because I think in their mind they've created a pacifist Christian religion, and it's violent Christians who have it wrong. And this is the type of Christians to me that if they're guilty of anything, it's being just as unfamiliar with the Bible as the right-wingers, because they don't seem to get that violence and massacre is God's MO.
Yep. But the fucked up thing is, hey, man, they get it, but this makes sense. When what we did in Vietnam, right, baby killers, when God does the exact same thing, the single most graceful thing we've ever seen. Wasn't that wonderful? Again, I think they both, quote unquote, know their Bible, both sides. But again, there's just different.
Yes.
God's perfect book becomes God's perfect book of, pick and choose.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like there. It says right there that God murdered everyone. He drowned everyone and everything. That's fucked up. Then what does the other side of Christianity say? That was the most beautiful and most graceful thing we've ever seen. That was fantastic.
Right.
And so again, they look at the exact same event and have two totally different interpretations. So
it's like one of those Rorschach blot tests or whatever.
Exactly.
You had to take.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
I see a butterfly.
When I was first starting out,
exactly.
ministry, the pastor who I worked with was a huge fan of Mark Driscoll, and this sense that the church has become feminized, and we need to militantly take back the church. If you're asking for a scriptural support for that, I don't think you can necessarily find it. But as a Lutheran, for me, as a Lutheran pastor, Martin Luther said, all of scripture and all of religion is about interpretation. Nobody has the one truth of scripture. And so everything we do is interpreted by Jesus' revelation, by prayer, and by discernment, by study. And so there is room for debate on Bible passages. And I think, to deny that and to say, well, no, this one interpretation is correct is not biblical or factual.
I also just think this is a dangerous way to think here. There's a college called I think it's called Smith College or something like that, or St. John. I think it's called St. John's College, but not St. John's University. They're different. And they have a standard curriculum, right? There's no majors. There's no a gazillion different programs. They read the classic text, whatever that means. And there's a certain, curriculum based on those classic texts, and it never changes. So the class of 2024 has the same curriculum as the class of 1964, and it's called the program. The point is, one of their big things is reading text as they are, right? Because you have the text itself as the document that is what you have in front of you. And in some sense, they do less trying to infer the context. Their point is to let the work speak for itself and deal with that. I kind of lean this way when it comes to religious text. I just think this idea where you go in with the attitude that everything's up to interpretation gets you to a place where, again, I think this is a pastor who would just say things don't mean what they say, right? The book says it's an abomination for man to lie with man. Oh, well, and then again, you got to go to, well, it's really about the interpretation. It said God created the world in 6 days. No, it's really about the interpretation. I always said the same way. Well, imagine if it went the opposite. Imagine if scientists said, to the best of our knowledge, it seems like the world was made in 6 days. How many Christians would go, oh, no, that's just a metaphor. Really, to God, a day is like an eon, and it's probably millions or billions. Right? No, of course not. It just really bothers me, and I'm not trying to say nothing ever is open to interpretation, songs, poems, or whatever. But it's really dangerous to say you're going to live your life according to passages of an ancient text that are just open to your interpretation of them. That's just wildness to me.
They can't. The Christians who more closely emulate, I guess, what's in the book, they're even ostracized by your standard issued Sunday morning, Christmas morning kind of Christian. The more committed you are to Christianity, the more of a lunatic you come across. If you sit there and you look at Westboro Baptist, the God hates fags, lovely people, they actually have scriptural backing for what they're doing and for what they're saying. They 100% do. Again, you cannot walk, the more you walk hand in hand with Christianity, the more you interpret Christianity as exactly what it is you see in that book, the more of an asshole you become.
Right.
So again, it's them walking that fine line of, I believe, but I'm not Westboro Baptist.
Right.
I'm
right,
not Steven Anderson.
Yeah.
It becomes interpretation when it suits
them,
the Christian
exactly,
and their ability to fit into society. The ones who do word for word, they're the assholes. So that's where your interpretation bullshit comes into play.
Yeah, and I did the same thing, right? When I was a Christian, I interpreted the hell out of everything because that's how I remained a Christian. But when I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, I was just giving myself, I was overthinking it, right? I was giving myself all this what ifs and all these hoops I was tying myself in instead of saying, yeah, the book says some fucked up shit. Fortunately, the book is not true, right? And I couldn't get there because I was always searching for the correct interpretation that would, because I think what they really mean when they say that is this is how you solve cognitive dissonance. And to me, you're never going to deal with your cognitive dissonance if you always can just reach for the next conciliatory
X, Y, and Z verse. Absolutely.
Interpretation. Yep, there you go.
How does anticipation of the end times, the eschatology of the modern evangelical church factor in? Because when you think about allusions to violence or descriptions of violence in the New Testament, you know, they're few and far between, but they exist. There's obviously the crucifixion, but they really reach their peak in the book of Revelation. And I have this habit of listening to AM radio on long drives, not just, you know, in Ohio, but when I travel around in the South in particular. And that is a pretty resonant theme across just about everything I listen to coming out of evangelical movements today.
Yeah, there's a very present sense of fear. And, you know, of course, Jesus says perfect love casts out fear. But this sense of fear within the movement of Christian nationalism is what really holds people captive to it. And I really got the biggest sense of that sense of fear, not in Dallas, you know, not in this Christian nationalist center necessarily, but really when that was coupled with weapons. So the third chapter of the book is on guns. And I visited more of a Pentecostal church in Florida where the pastors carry guns. And, you know, I've been around guns before I grew up.
You're done, son. The moment you say Pentecostal, you have left the logical side of this conversation.
Yes, my family.
I mean, the holy shit. I know Pentecostals. I know Pentecostals today that will see a woman in a pair of pants. Gang, a regular pair of jeans. There's no holes in them. She's not masturbating in public. Just jeans. She's a fucking whore.
Yes.
And so the moment you say Pentecostal, you have hit the eject button on logical conversation.
That's what I'm dealing with.
Everything she's getting ready to say is,
that's what I'm dealing with, bro.
Fuck with it.
You will never catch my grandmother in a pair of pants. No. Yeah. Never.
This is a different thing where it's coupled with this sense of imminent fear and the end times. And it's also coupled, interestingly, often with the prosperity gospel and this sense that, okay, if you do the right thing, you're going to get money and cars and wealth. Now, again, too, this is distinct from this old time Southern religion necessarily. That's more this old school God, country, military. We see also what Trump did is he kind of merged these two groups together. So you've got like the Paula Whites, the more global Pentecostal religion. And that's where we get this bringing in, especially of the end times and this sense we've got to defend ourselves for these coming end times.
So there's your problem. Again, gang, if you don't know who Paula White is, under any other context, you would watch a Paula White tape and you would wonder, why is she not wearing a straitjacket and eating her dinner through a straw? She's the one who sits there and literally speaks in tongues. She'll sit there, and again, it has been tested. Speaking in tongues is a talent. It's like listening to Eric B. and Rakim. You're like, how the fuck do you just flow like that, man? Right? It's because the God that I don't believe in told Rakim, brother, this is just going to be your talent. Paula White is the same. And she can just sit there and flow.
Yes.
Right?
I thought Punk was going to drop. I don't know what you think Punk is.
Yeah, you're just sitting there, and someone will now write her $100,000 check.
Exactly.
Gang, she's been at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. She was once a spiritual advisor to the president of the United States. Right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. Right? And she's got legitimacy. And that should be fucking scary as shit.
Yes. But that's
right?
So she's calling out that movement, and it is a white evangelical Pentecostalism. But the thing is, like, I've been realizing, say for instance, the black Pentecostals and the black Christians in my family are effectively black conservatives. And to me, I would probably think that this pastor is rather conservative, right? Because this is what's like crazy to me. It's like I'm stuck with Christians like her trying to help me defend against the Paula Whites so that I can get almost what feels like a softer Christian theocracy, and I'm not interested in that either. Like, I want genuine progress over to the left, and I'm realizing, like, I'm always gonna be like not the right person to call for this, because I don't want to work with Christianity. I don't want to work under the umbrella of Christianity at all. Sure. Like I even want to rewrite the civil rights movement, because as a Christian, I celebrated the fact that Martin Luther King was a pastor, right? But now that I'm an atheist, I look back and I cringe at the stories of how secular people were central to the civil rights movement, but it was all had to be under this, the Southern Leadership Christian Conference or whatever to make it all palatable, right? And then still this day, we have the legacy through the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharptons and all of that, who, despite their best efforts, it's like leadership in our community is still seen through pastors. And I was watching this video about black conservatives that made this kind of interesting point, and hopefully we'll revisit a little bit. But they basically said, who are our leaders? So oftentimes it's like a celebrity, an athlete, a singer, an actor or a movie star, a person with a TV show, or in this case, so many times as a pastor. Look at white leadership. When are the singers and the actors and all of these people considered the leaders on a societal level when it comes to heavy hitting issues, when it comes to civics and real social? Like, that's a difference right there. That your white leaders are fucking leaders. Black leaders are who knows what the fuck else they are. But if they woke enough, put them on out there. Like, as if we don't have real, like, educated progressive voices that can actually speak for us. So
absolutely.
So to me, like, that's what I'm sort of bemoaning, is that even to like address Christian nationalism, it isn't this fucking leftist movement against Christianity that is using Christian nationalism as the impetus to like finally get Christianity off our back. Instead, it's like, let all the moderate Christians show up and save the day from the crazy Trumpist Christians, and then we'll have Christianity to thank and 20 more years of white political leaders coming to black churches. It's just frustrating. It's just...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I dig. Yeah. Totally dig it.
All right, let's have some tape.
Certainly a weapon that has been used for a long time to justify.
Also, we do want to give her some credit, because she went to race and she went to guns. Okay, she pleasantly surprised me. Yeah.
That's the fucked up thing about this whole video. We're going to agree with just about everything she has to say, but there's the ...
Right.
That's the fucked up part. We are going to agree with what it is she says.
Yeah.
A lot of corrupt religious leadership, whether it's Warren Jeffs in Utah or, Jim Jones in Jonestown.
I would submit that the corruption goes beyond those who have, literally preyed upon, and in the case of a few like Jim Jones, murdered their followers. When you are taking from the poor to build your own estates and build,
here we go
temples
again.
To your
Pause
own
the tape. This is going to be a two-parter. We got to do a two-parter.
Oh yeah, no worries.
It's the others, right? It's the few. It's the Jim Jones. It's like, dude, it's not the others. To say it's the others is to completely ignore the centuries of abuse brought on by the Catholic Church. The how many thousands of cases just out of the SBCs. The Pentecostals, there's blood on their hands. Again, we're going to agree with everything that this dude has to say and that pastor.
Right.
The fucked up part is, again, you have never seen the one Christian say, "Oh, me? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I'm the one who's fucked up. I'm the one who fucked up the red letters. I'm part of the group that's fucking..." No.
Right, never.
No, that's not. He just othered, again, those few. I actually got into an argument at work back when I used to have these arguments. And it was like, the other dude was like, well, why are you going to, demonize the Catholic Church on the acts of just a few priests? I was like, first and foremost, you're just factually in error. The Catholic Church is fucking NAMBLA. They've been busting open booty holes since the day they opened up their doors for business. And even if it's quote unquote just a few, that's exactly 9 million too many. Go tell that to the kid who lost their innocence at the hands of a fucking rapist. And then like, well, are you going to put that person in jail? No, we're just going to continue to transfer this asshole from parish to parish to parish to parish.
Right.
The fucked up thing about this whole thing is we're going to agree with everything they have to say. But again, they are part of the problem whether they realize it or not. He just othered all the Christians that are doing wrong, not thinking for 2 seconds that maybe he's part of the Christianity that's fucked up. And yeah, Joel, I just saw what you said in the side chat, that he legitimately said a few.
Yeah, and that's...
Again, no one is part of the wrong side of Christianity.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me too about the majority, even if I would call them blue Christians or whatever, like, is I don't know what they want to go back to. I don't know what they're fighting for. I don't know if they're actually fighting for the end of the patriarchy and the end of racism and to take us in a direction that's not Christian nationalism, because I feel like sometimes they just want to go back to not saying the quiet part out loud, right? Because how many of these so-called left Christians are going to, amen and hallelujah when we start talking about family values and the nuclear family and all of this stuff? It's like they're still on board with the coded language. I highly doubt that they're the type that look around and go, they say Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America, and I'm sick of it. They're not. They're happy to live in essentially segregated neighborhoods and go to essentially segregated churches and dog whistle about family values and all of this other stuff. Again, I just think. And it's not all of them. It's just hard to tell who's who. But I think a lot of them are just being asked tough questions these days they don't want to answer anymore. And they want to go back to when the radical crazy people are not carrying crosses around so that they don't have to have the uncomfortable conversations anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know where they're really at.
Yeah, we're about to find out.
Be illegal, but it's certainly, I would argue, corrupt in any interpretation of
they don't see color though. They sure don't see color.
There's this passage from your book that captures this really well, and I'd love your reaction to it. You say that we need to pay attention to the vocal minority of red state Christians, like the ones I met at the river at Tampa Bay, whose commitment to gun rights is based in fear, isolation, and an impending American Armageddon. That fear-based Christianity, your term, I see that all the time. What I can't make out is how to reconcile it with the prosperity gospel, or the idea that if you do certain things, there is an economic message coming from the pulpit in mega churches today. How do they square that with the idea that the world is ending?
I think,
but hold on,
in just a really practical sense.
Isn't all Christianity fear-based?
100%.
If you don't do this, you are going to be fucked up. Wait till Jesus comes back. Translation, wait till your father gets home. And Christianity at its foundation is fear-based. If you don't do what I tell you to do, there's not going to be consequences. You're going to get fucked up. Again, he's othering the churches that he doesn't agree with.
Right.
But if you ask him, and again, I did not catch this pastor's name.
Sure. Yeah, no worries.
But if you ask them, and if you ask that dude and Angela, I didn't get the other dude, fuck it. John and Angela, if you say, okay, you really sound like you're kind of good to go. What happens to me? I just bought your dinner. We're having a great conversation. I like you. I think you're cool. Just so you know, the odds are very slim that you're going to convert me before I die. What if I sat and choked on this steak and died right in front of you? I'm an atheist. What would happen to me? Well, Robert, and they would just sit there with, again, these two are not a part of the wrong Christianity. Christianity, by definition, is fear-based. Their refusal, not inability, their refusal to answer that very simple question, and they would refuse to answer that question. If I choked to death in front of you right now, kind Christian, I'm an atheist, and I died in a state of my sin, what would happen to me? They would not answer the question. They're no different than the Christian who would say, fuck you, you're going to burn in hell right now. Again, Christianity by definition is fear-based.
Yes.
Period.
They act as though they
cannot backpedal out of that.
They act as though they go through the relationship without anticipation of the benefits. Let's say you're in a monogamous relationship. You want that sweet, sweet thing. You're going to have to put in your effort to add some value to this person's life so we can work out some kind of partnership here. And there's a give and take. Most of us would not continue to contribute to somebody if we're not getting any benefit out of the relationship. And I find that that's the problem with most Christians. On the surface of it, like you said, it's fear-based. They are in this relationship following the laws, paying their tithes, going to church out of anticipation that they are going to reap the exclusive benefits of being a Christian and being good to go, stamped with the seal of life and given an eternity to be in the presence of God. And the rest of us really should have taken that opportunity when we had it. And they talk to you as though, no, I'm just going to church and paying my tithes because I just feel compelled to by the love of Jesus working in my soul. Oh, and if you're a good person and you're great, I'm sure God's gonna figure that out and come to His own righteous conclusions about your soul. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
They're bullshit. They're absolutely just bullshit.
100%.
So you gotta have a carrot and you gotta have a stick, right? So some people are gonna respond to the carrot, some people are gonna respond to the stick, and also we have. That's the other thing that Trump was able to bring together is we have this worship of celebrity and fame and wealth in America. And that was shunned for a long time by American Christians, whether it goes all the way back to the Puritans. And so we've seen a real change, even with somebody like Jerry Falwell Jr., this embrace of wealth, or somebody like Bill Hybels, the megachurch movement, Rick Warren, this acceptance of Christianity of saying, like, it's good to be a billionaire. That's a hard sell on the Jesus of the New Testament.
It sure is convenient, though, for those at the top of that pyramid. For those who are unfamiliar, can you talk a little bit about the prosperity gospel and how they're able to pull it off?
Yeah, this is old, right? We call it the prosperity gospel. They called it the tower.
So again, here's the problem. I ran across this with Fuckface Chris. Again, that sucker came at me 100% with a script. Chris, absolutely. These two people and everyone, they target Creflo Dollar. What a great name.
Yes.
Joel Osteen, Joyce Myers. That all
TD Jakes, all the Jet Set crew. Yeah.
Exactly. How easy is it to sit there and say those guys over there and that one girl, two girls, those boys and those girls, they're the fucked up ones. The ones sitting here it is such an easy target to sit there and look at Joel Osteen's rich monkey ass worth millions of dollars. He lives on a compound. He refused to open up his church during Harvey and just got raked over the coals on social media until he had to open up his church, lest he get more criticism. That's where I earned my block, by the way, gang. I peppered his monkey ass because I'm 2 hours away from Houston. All these fucking Christians, they sit there and they pick on the easiest target, the lowest hanging fucking fruit. I mean, this is too easy. And again, the fucked up portion about all of this, Bundy, you and I are sitting here agreeing with them. And that's the problem with this whole conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please notice, not a single time have either of these two Christians said, okay, you know what? Bring the criticism on to me. Let's talk about all this shit that I've done wrong. It's always that Christian over there. So again, this is just garbage.
And again, I should also add too, even the softiest of Christians who is anti quote unquote Christian nationalism, they just can't help but celebrate when their daughter's third grade teacher is a Christian, and the baker at the grocery store is a Christian, and their coach my dog is having some kind of nightmare, and their personal fitness trainer is a Christian. So they don't want to be Christian nationalists. They just want to live in a nation where everything is Christian. And sorry, as an atheist, I fail to see the difference.
There isn't one.
Tower of Babel at one point. This idea that we're gonna climb our way up to God. They had the golden calf at the time of Moses and Aaron. And I would say for me, you know, what I always try to remind American Christians is that this is not a uniquely American phenomenon. So when people want to say, oh, no, this is just a partisan issue, this is between Democrats, Republicans, red states, blue states, I really want to remind people that for those of us who are American Christians, and even people who aren't, we have to look at Christian history all the way back to the Roman Empire. The early Christians, they're running for their lives. The Apostle Paul is in chains. He's writing most of his letters. And then in AD 300, so 300 years after the birth of Christ, the Roman Emperor Constantine, on his deathbed, takes on Christianity. And at that point, Christianity goes from being the persecuted religion of the empire who crucified Jesus to the religion of the empire. It goes on to become the Holy Roman Empire in Europe, the largest landowner in Europe. And so at that point, we see a hinge point in where Christianity becomes the religion of empire. And I think those are some of the same phenomenons that are happening with, prosperity gospel indulgences that, my buddy Martin Luther spoke against 500 years ago. I think these are all of the same ilk, and it's all this hope and this dream that we can become God.
There is.
All right, go ahead, Uncle Bobby.
Well, no, this is just hard to listen to. Because again, she's the one, and this dude nodding his head. They're the two Christians that got it right. Well, you know who else got it right? Cy Tim Bruggencate. Do you know who else got it right? Fuckface Frank Turek. You know who else got it right? The Children of God religious cult. Everyone has got it right. Again, hit me up in the side chat, gang. I'm barely checking it, but hit me up in the side chat. Which group of Christians have said, nope, that's me. My bad. I completely fucked it up. Right? And there's one thing that the majority of them can come together, unify, and attack. It's the prosperity gospel. I'm still waiting to hear both of these Christians talk about the ills within their own church. I'm still waiting to hear a Christian sit here and say, you know what? Let me tell you what I did that completely fucked this up. Yeah. No, it's always 100%. See those? I've said it before. Religion is like racism. Everyone knows a victim of a racist crime, but nobody knows a racist. Right? No, that person over there, they call the black person a nigger. They called the Mexican a wetback. Well, what did you do? Oh, that's not me. No. I love niggers. Right? What Christian has stood up and said? They'll tell you, oh, I'm a guilty sinner. I'm a guilty sinner. Well, Jesus said this. No. Jesus said that. You've never met the one Christian who will tell you, I fucked up the interpretation of the red letters. I'm the one who got it right. And again, for the most part, I agree with just about everything these two have said. Yeah. But please notice how it's those Christians over there that they are critiquing. They have yet to throw their own views and opinions under the bus. Yeah. It's always someone else's fault, not
absolutely.
theirs.
And I would also really want to listen to one of her sermons. Because I have a hard time believing she doesn't.
We need to find it.
She doesn't slip into that materialistic language when with her congregation, right? Because again, that's what people came for. They want to hear how Jesus wants to heal them and wants to bless them and wants them to find job and wants them to find love. So everybody, again, it's easy to point out somebody else and say, oh, prosperity gospel, prosperity gospel, prosperity gospel. How do I know? Look at the private jet up there. But I just feel like the prosperity gospel is the common thread in probably most Christian congregations in America. So it's easy to point out and criticize, but it's a whole lot more difficult to actually avoid as a charismatic preacher.
Hold on. Dr. Squid just hit, I'm looking at the side chat and I just saw the Church of Non-Accountability.
The Church of Non-Accountability. Exactly.
That absolutely fucking nailed it. And again, it's everyone else's fault but mine. There's no accountability. It's never me, the person who fucked up. It's that Christian over there.
And there's also I like Midas Touch. Like I said, they're a good network, especially they do a lot of really great legal coverage on political issues. But this is kind of that CNN problem that's been coming up with, like, it's a problem to me that we don't have enough progressive platforms that are willing to call out Christianity, and instead we're carrying water for the other side, right? Oh, let's hear about how the real Christians are anti-Christian. And I know what people are saying, like, but they're trying to pull on the heartstrings of, Christians and help them do the right thing. It's like I get all that, but we've got to be able to be a little bit more critical, and I think the problem is people are not willing to stare the elephant in the room in the face. We want to dance around the problems with Christianity without addressing, hey, the shit's probably not true. It's probably fucking made up. And if we could start there, we could unravel a lot of this really quickly.
Real strides. Yep.
Exactly. We have to try to make progress without saying the thing you can't say, I guess.
Pretty much.
Such a strong appeal to the idea of persecution within the church today, hearkening back to the church's early times, but it almost seems like another fetishization when you have, and examples of this are war on Christmas rhetoric, but you see it in a million other forms, the idea that Christians have this bunker mentality, and they almost seem to relish it. I shouldn't say Christians broadly, but the evangelical MAGA red state Christians that you write about love the idea of being in a bunker together, fending off slings and arrows as their own tribe. Is that just a historical wistfulness, or is there something else going on?
There's a weird thing that's gone on. I think I've seen this since, I was a teenager even, maybe, where there's been some kind of benefit in whoever has got the claim for the most suffering. I mean, you can probably relate to it in your time in politics of everybody grew up poor, everybody. So I think that, and just the claiming of, identity politics that maybe was initially something that was more prominent on the left, and I think has really shifted to now the Republican Party has become the party of identity politics. And so from a Christian perspective and the sense of persecution, I think the way to really combat that, in one sense, is to really lift up the stories of folks who are currently experiencing persecution around the world for their faith. And I, was able to spend some time with Christians living in Bethlehem and just hearing the stories of their lives and what they've faced to continue to be this Christian presence in the Holy Land. It pales in comparison to, the distinction of Happy Holidays versus Merry Christmas. And for pastors, if there's Christian leaders, ministry leaders, pastors who are listening, I think so much of this, when I talk to faith leaders, it's on us. How have we positively explained what the gospel is? Some folks have spent so much time saying what the gospel is.
That's just it. You can't positively explain the gospel. You can't. Because there's nothing positive about the gospel.
Right.
The end of the story, no matter how much twisting, turning, you took it out of context, it's a metaphor. Here's the bottom line of the gospel message. Everybody was born a sinner, except for toddlers and infants. But everyone was born a sinner. God cannot be in the presence of sin. The only way to get everlasting life in heaven is to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. You were born reprobate. You were born broken. Your good deeds are filthy rags at the foot of the Lord. If you don't hear what I just said, if you don't accept this proposition, You are going to be tortured forever in a way that you cannot imagine how bad it's going to be. Now, there is nothing biblically inaccurate with what it is I just said. Nothing. There was no snark. There was no sarcasm. There was no hyperbole. Everything I just said was spot the fuck on correct.
Yep.
There's no nice way. I think the picture's right.
Yeah, you did good.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no way what she just said is real, true. There's no nice way to spin the gospel. But again, she's othering the other churches. She's othering the other religious sects of Christianity.
Yeah.
There's no nice way to say, I'm going to punch you in your fucking face. I'm going to punch you in your fucking face. And you know what? You deserve to get punched in my hold on, let's take a look. Oh, what do you see? One ice cube.
Bitch, I said 3 ice cubes. Now
3 ice cubes.
What are you trying to conserve ice cubes up in this bitch?
Yeah, exactly. You don't think I don't make enough money to afford fucking water up in this bitch? Now get your ass in there and go get my belt out of the back of the fucking closet. The beating that you're getting ready to get, you deserve. Oh, what's that? You're going to leave? Beat it, bitch. You don't think I can't get to your fucking daughter? You don't think I don't know where she is? Huh? There's no nice way to spin the fucking gospel message.
None.
But again, she is othering all the other churches.
Yeah. And it's weird because you're hopeful, like, okay, Christian, you're ready to come to the table, but they can't. The blinders are still on. And so it turns into apologetics where you're just doing PR and it comes away being less about a genuine, move against Christian nationalism, and it's more like, you guys are making us look bad. We're trying to push this gospel message here, and you guys are really making us look bad. And again, so I don't know what they want. It's almost like they just want to go back to everybody being a soft Christian, contributing your tithes. Like it's the softer Christian nationalism. I can't stand it.
Oh yeah,
it's not. But we haven't really explained what the gospel is. And when people have a strong sense for that, then you can locate yourself within where it is and step out of this sense of, feeling sorry for ourselves in a sense.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to the pushback that's happening within the church today, but that persecution complex is just so cynical and self-serving, especially when you compare it to real persecution that is happening abroad, when you talk about Christians, or in this country, when you talk about LGBTQ plus communities. And the scariest thing for me is how these churches you study have extended that persecution complex to the entire country. And this passage from your book captures that. You say that red state Christians consider America and American Christianity under siege. Not just their church, but the country itself, resulting in a defensive pushback. Churches today must defend not just Jesus, but also America. The American flag and the Christian flag are posted side by side in sanctuaries across the country, often directly in front of the cross. I've heard you say it, and I think it bears reminding that Jesus was not American.
Yeah, I mean, there's no America in the Bible, believe it or not. What's come to me too, and this hasn't been necessarily an easy process for me. But, so when I first began speaking about the book when it came out, and I spoke in a lot of what people would call conservative communities, I spoke to a lot of conservative churches, and I would say that Jesus is an American, and there'd be kind of like a silence. And the people would always laugh, like, oh yeah, of course he's not. But it was this moment where we kind of all needed to hear that in a sense, because Jesus has been, if you even look at some of the imagery that's used around, movements within the Christian right or movements in support of Trump, there's a lot of imagery that depicts Jesus as being American, Jesus as being a soldier for America. So it definitely bears repeating. What's happened for me since the book came out and in this transition to the new edition of the book is that I also...
Again, this is the problem. I agree with everything she's saying, but she's still othering the other churches. Gang, this is going to be... you guys, I don't know if you can see that.
Beautiful.
There's a picture of Jesus.
Looking like
a very standard depiction of fucking Jesus.
Looking like Jason Momoa or some shit.
Yeah, the fuck face looks like Jason Momoa fucked Michael Bolton out of someone's booty hole, paying a sexy version of Kenny fucking Loggins. When you see again, the frustrating part about all of this is I agree with her, but she's sitting on the Christian side saying that those Christians are wrong. We have absolutely positively, buddy, where you going? How many sneezes, dude? Seriously. 25 sneezes? That's it? Step your game up. But she's othering the other Christians. They're the ones that got... Jesus was not an American. No shit, Sherlock. But I promise you, if you go to her church, her Jesus looks a hell of a lot like more like this cat than... Just so you guys know, chances are Jesus' skin tone was probably a little bit lighter than mine. His hair, because lice was such an issue back in those days, it would have looked like an incredibly unkept afro. His nose would have been wider than mine. Jesus did not speak English. Did you guys know that? I'm sorry. The people in the side chat, they know that. But white Christians, are you guys aware that Jesus did not speak a word of English? That chant, that Christian, build the wall, build the wall. Are you guys not aware that the Christian Jesus would have been on the other side of the wall that you guys 100%. So desperately fucking want? But again, she's othering the other Christians. She's right. Jesus has been Americanized. Now, go to her church and go look at the depiction of Jesus. I guarantee you the fucker looks a hell of a lot like this sexy motherfucker than what Jesus would have actually looked like.
Yes.
Again, she is the one Christian that got it right. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and it's 100% true because you don't even recognize the white supremacy built into white Jesus, right. And there's just no way. This is really hard. Again, I wanna clap for the Christians, like you say. If your Jesus makes you not a Christian nationalist, your Jesus is clearly the better alternative.
Absolutely.
But the fact that you still just can't see the gaping hole in this narrative is
100%.
It's tough.
100%.
So felt really compelled to begin talking about how Jesus is also not white. And that, I grew up in Minnesota. I'm German and Scandinavian. The Jesus in my churches was blonde, I believe. And, I think that even that deeper truth helps white American Christians to decenter ourselves from the story of Christianity. And we for so long centered ourselves in that story when really, if you want to find white people in the Bible, maybe it's Pontius Pilate, maybe it's the Roman soldiers. That's about it. And so I think there's, for a long time I was one of those people that thought, we can't make everything about race. I live, just about 5 miles from where George Floyd was murdered. And so I think that was a real, watershed moment for me in really speaking plainly about the role of race and racism in this violent movement of Christianity, and also really speaking clearly about where Jesus is on that topic as well. And Jesus was not afraid to speak plainly about abuse and persecution.
Well, the historical Jesus really is a challenge to a lot of the values and the policy prescriptions offered by the churches you're talking about. Not only was he not white, he was a children of immigrants.
Wow. Okay.
He was persecuted.
Right. We're doing a lot. We're doing a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm
Jewish.
wondering how your
gang, that's the problem right there. You see, like, we're at such a place with this atheism thing that I don't know if you know about like mythicism versus historicism, you know, whether or not you think Jesus was a real person or he was a myth. And it's just crazy. Most of us have gotten to a place where we're tired of that conversation. It's sort of like the beginning of the universe. We know enough to say we don't know, and we maybe can't ever know. And it doesn't matter because it just doesn't matter. Wasn't God, right? But I'm just realizing that this is the thing it feels like we've lost touch with, because most of America is comfortable assuming that he was historical, and then like we could just learn from his historical example. It's just we're so far apart, right? On how we see these things. Probably a minor point, but it just drives me crazy that we're just like, oh yeah, he was definitely a Jew and definitely an immigrant, definitely.
Yeah, they're saying all the right things. They are. But let's see what else they got.
It would have been great to see if they brought up
that
doubt
in some of these churches is received. There is clearly pushback even among evangelicals against this adoption of militancy and racist subtexts. How is that internal conflict playing out right now?
Well, you know, our Christianity has become, I think, even more polarized, you know, in the years since I've written the book. So there's a lot of places that, you know, just would never have me come speak. Like the places that are going to have the most pushback are going to be probably avoiding having me there, or, you know, engaging with my work. However, I will say that, you know, I do get messages and notes from folks who are kind of stepping out of some of the ideology that they've received in megachurches, and in evangelical churches. And I'll say too, there's such a soft sell, especially in a lot of these large, wealthy suburban churches that are ultimately pushing a lot of anti-women messaging, a lot of misogynist messaging, a lot of like violent messaging. There's a very soft sell, especially to families. And so they sort of draw in folks with like, we've got this great place for kids and it's this beautiful building and we've got this awesome music. And then people find themselves there, and then all of a sudden they'll hear something. I've had this, you know, happen with friends of mine, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that, you know, this church didn't support gay marriage, or that this church was, you know, this pastor was such a huge Trump supporter. So I think that, again, there's that would not happen in a smaller local congregation because.
All right. But here's the thing that, you know, they don't think about. And I think it's James used to talk about this, like, the fact that first off, she does the same thing, right? Not realizing, not going to sell us, oh, you know, Christianity is misogynistic and pro-slavery, like all this shit that we now realize is the true character of Christianity. She also, you know, sells people this progressive version of pacifist Jesus who's secretly woke and all of this shit, right? And at the same time, she's also doesn't know where people go. So she's not just saying that in her congregation where she can sort of shepherd her own people in the direction she thinks they should go. She's on national platforms or writing her books or wherever, really sort of rewrapping Christianity in a progressive package for people. But then where are they going to go? They're not all going to her church. Right, they're going to the church down the road, and so she's got the sales pitch that's setting up people to walk into these problematic Trumpist versions to begin with, because she gives them a soft sell of Christianity. Then she walks into there, they've got some milk and cookies in the soft sell, and that's why it takes them 3 fucking years to realize that the people they've been financially supporting are actually a bunch of problematic bigots.
And that's exactly what I think was. I'm trying to remember who said it first. But again, it's the moderates that they're the problem. God hates fags. The people who stand outside my grocery store and scream at us, they're the extremists. It's easy to pick on those fuckers. Again, whoever and whatever the pastor's name is, and the military vet, the soft tone. There is the problem. Again, as much as I'm agreeing with just about everything these two are saying, they are part of the problem. Because again, if you and I sat there to their face and said, you realize I'm probably going to die an atheist, right? What's going to happen to me? How many excuses would we have to
so many
way through?
So many.
Right? Well, I think God's going to hold, and I've been told this, God's going to hold you suspended for like 5 minutes in between heaven and hell, death and life. Here I am. There's no biblical backing for that. They will do exactly what 95% of Christianity will do. Backpedal, shuck and jive, make excuses for the bullshit. So again, as much as I'm agreeing with everything this pastor has to say and the vet, they are part of the problem whether they realize it or not.
Absolutely.
There's no nice way to spin this message.
Absolutely.
Because people would be knowing who their pastor is and knowing who one another is. But in these large churches, of which I've served in the past, you can be more anonymous and people don't know each other and people don't speak to the pastor directly. The pastor almost becomes sort of like this unreachable godlike figure.
Pretty much.
And so I think that contributes to a lot of sense of misinformation. People just kind of find themselves getting swept up into things. And then, as you heard on, if you ever listened to the Mars Hill podcast that Christianity Today put out, people, when they try to disentangle themselves from this movement, that's all their friendships, that's all their clubs. They get so they've given so much money. And so I think that much of this process of stepping away from Christian nationalism for people, it's like a recovery process. It's like a 12-step process. It's like this, and it's much more of a therapeutic process rather than like, let's get in an argument and I'm going to convince you rationally to change your mind. It's not really a mind issue.
Well, you haven't said it this way, but everything you are describing suggests cult deprogramming.
Yeah, and I think that so much of religion in general.
Okay, I got to roll out after this.
That's fine.
Here's the thing: when he said it's cult deprogramming, again, what the hell do they think they are a part of? If you ask the members of Scientology, if you were to ask the members of the Branch Davidian, the Jim Jones cult, you ask any of them, are you part of a cult? You know what they're going to say? Fuck no.
Exactly.
Again, the problem with this is it's two things. One, we are agreeing with everything it is. You know what it is? Do you know what this is?
What?
I'm not the abusive spouse. I hit that bitch with an open hand. You see that motherfucker over there? He used his fist and he kicked her when she was on the ground.
Right.
There's your abusive spouse over there.
Right.
I told her 3 ice cubes. Look at that. 1 fucking ice cube. How am I supposed to enjoy my motherfucking gin with 1 ice cube? So I hit her with an open hand.
Right.
He's the one that's the problem. He hit her. What kind of barbarian hits their woman with a closed fist? What's that, baby? When you go to the ER, your eyes on your okay. Hold on, buddy. I got to take this bitch to the front. Her eye had the audacity. It's everyone else's problem. They, as much as I am agreeing, we are agreeing with everything it is they have to say.
Yes.
They're part of the problem.
Yeah.
That there is the center of this. Look.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I'm going to say, can we finish this tomorrow?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Because I would love a distraction tomorrow because tomorrow's going to fucking suck. We are 26 minutes into a 50-minute video. I would love to pick this up tomorrow at noon if you're available.
Oh, yeah, we can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, let's wrap this up tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
let's do the same
as much
thing.
as I'm agreeing with everything they're saying, these two people are part of the problem.
Absolutely.
Sadly.
Yeah, catch us tomorrow for freaking part 2 of this motherfucker.
Please.
And we will knock this thing on out. This was super fun. All right, gang, we're in Gather for the rest of the day. If you want to link up with us, also remember we've got a meeting tomorrow night at 9. We'll see you later.
Just gotta focus on yourself out here, y'all. Pay too much to the competition. Don't worry about what other people doing. Gotta trust your process. Worry about yourself, like I'm saying, man. Bigger than me, bigger than you. You know what I mean? You know what you gotta do, then do it. You're always making excuses, we ain't got time for no excuses. You gotta get it, man. You know what I'm saying? Don't let nobody hold you back. Don't about that negativity, suggestions. Fuck all that shit, my nigga. Yeah.
No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous. You niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you before we pull up and embarrass you. No competition. I'm feeling so fabulous. And you niggas mad as shit, but it do not matter, kid. So what's the comparison? You niggas ain't zagging yet. Tell your homies stop gassing you